Senator Scarr. Senator Kovacic.
Thank you, Acting Deputy President. I also rise today to speak on the Treasury Laws Amendment 2020-23 Measures No. 1 Bill. Well, whether it's franking credits or superannuation or your salary, it appears that the Albanese government is after what little money people currently have left. We have heard time and time again before the election from Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister, that there would be no changes to franking credits and no changes to superannuation under his government. So let me repeat that. We've heard time and time again that there would be no changes to franking credits and no changes to superannuation. Well, then what is this? This is the bill that we're talking about today. And I'm sorry to disappoint everybody, but this bill represents sweeping changes to superannuation and franking credits, changes that will impact hard-working ordinary Australians the hardest. The bill is 5 schedules in 48 pages of changes to super and franking credits. This bill also has a 220-page explanatory memorandum in changes to super and franking credits. This bill is over $500 million in changes to super and franking credits. Let's have a think about that. That is $500 million being taken out of the retirements, the savings and the superannuation accounts of Australians. All this in the middle of a cost of living crisis, where Australians don't have very much money left, costs are going up all around them, yet their wages are not. And now the government is consciously deciding to make things worse. They are taking a sledgehammer to the savings of Australians. They are taking this money to fund their mismanagement of our economy. During Senate estimates on Wednesday, the 8th of November, Finance Minister Katie Gallagher appeared not to realise that a change to the franking credit policy was in her budget, denying 10 times that there was a change to franking credits in the budget. The minister later had to correct the record. When asked about the measure in question time on the 6th of March, the Prime Minister couldn't give a straight answer. The Finance Minister doesn't know what's in the bill. Does the Treasurer know? Or are they turning away as they let Stephen Jones pursue his vanity project of raiding the savings of hard-working Australians? Who does know? On the 1st of January 2021, the West Australian reported that our now Prime Minister then said, "We will not be taking any changes to franking credits to the next election." On the 30th of March, he then said on ABC Radio, "We won't have any changes to the franking credits regime which is there." That's Exhibit A of the changes that we're not having. On 15 December 2021, our now Prime Minister told Tasmania Talks, "We've made it clear that on areas like franking credits and negative gearing, we won't be taking those policies to the next election." On the 4th of March 2022, he said in relation to franking credits, "We are not touching them. We are not touching them." And on the 17th of January 2022, the Treasurer said, "We won't be doing franking credits," and I couldn't be clearer than that. I'm going to repeat that. The Treasurer said, "We won't be doing franking credits," and I couldn't be clearer than that. And here we are. Labor's broken promise on superannuation taxes just means that with the soaring cost of living pressures, Australians will be worse off. This is not just another broken promise. This undermines our superannuation system. It undermines the confidence in our superannuation system. Superannuation is your money. It is our money. It doesn't belong to any government. It is your money to deliver quality of life in retirement. It is not a piggy bank for governments to leverage, tax and spend. How many times does this government want to tax this money earned by ordinary Australians? Despite promising no changes to superannuation before the election, Prime Minister Albanese is proposing doubling super taxes on 1 in 10 Australians by the time they retire, stopping companies from offering franking credits to Australian investors, super funds and charities, taxing unrealised capital gains in super, meaning Australian retirees will pay tax on money they haven't even made yet. So let's think about that. Pay tax on money that you have not even made or earned. That's extraordinary. It is obvious that this government was dishonest about changing super and about franking credits. And they've been dishonest about how many Australians will be affected by these changes. Despite claiming that less than 80,000 Australians will be affected, independent research has shown that by retirement age, more than 500,000 Australians will be hit by this tax. Australians are right to be wondering what will be taxed next. How can we trust this government when they say one thing before an election over and over and over again and then do something completely different? The government is unable to explain how these changes will work. They can't explain how many people will be affected. The Prime Minister says it will impact 1 in 200 people. The Finance Minister says it will impact 1 in 10 people. If the government can't explain it, how can Australians be expected to understand it? The two measures which limit the ability for companies to offer franking credits to shareholders are estimated to raise at least $600 million over the next 5 years. The tax will fall overwhelmingly on older Australians and superannuation funds. The Tax Expenditure and Insight Statement, released last week, found that the biggest beneficiaries of franking credits are older Australians, Australian companies, as outlined very clearly by Senator Scarr, employers of everyday Australians, Australian super funds and Australian charities. The budget acknowledged that a substantial portion of the revenue from this measure will fall on Australians' superannuation. New tax policy measures announced since PEFO also increased superannuation fund tax receipts by $1 million in 2022 and 23 and $467 million over the 4 years between 2025 or the 4 years to 2025-2026. This includes the impact of the Improving the Integrity of Off-Market Share Buybacks measure, which is not expected to significantly impact tax receipts in 2022-23, but is expected to increase tax receipts by $400 million over the 4 years to 2025-2026, and that's from Budget Paper number 1, page 159. Page 49 of the explanatory memorandum for the bill makes it pretty clear. The bill ensures that arrangements can't be put in place to release franking credits. That's what it states. The bill ensures that arrangements can't be put in place to release franking credits. The tax increase is despite the Prime Minister ruling out changes to the franking credit regime before the election, over and over again. The Treasury's own talking points obtained under FOI confirm that there were significant concerns raised by the public. Over 2,000 submissions were received during consultation. Treasury also says concerns were raised over retrospectivity, policy objective and potential for the legislation as drafted to capture legitimate commercial practices. Treasury's own document says shareholders may argue the policy is effectively a tax increase or a winding back of dividend imputation. So let me repeat that. Treasury's own document states shareholders may argue the policy is effectively a tax increase or a winding back of dividend imputation. Schedule 1 amends the Corporations Act to close a loophole in the Post-Royal Commission requirement for financial advisors to register with ASIC's Financial Advisors Register. The amendments close a loophole to minimise the risk of inadvertent breaches of the law when offence provisions on providing unregistered financial advice commence. The amendments allow ASIC to streamline applications where a provider is authorised by more than one licensee to provide financial advice. Schedule 2 gives the Australian Accounting Standards Boards, the Auditing and Assurance Standard Board and the Financial Reporting Council the power to develop climate and sustainability standards. Schedule 3 implements 5 recommendations from the 2020 Tax Practitioners Board Review. This bill also introduces 2 changes to the franking credits regime that the government estimate will raise more than the $500 million that I outlined earlier, and they are contained in Schedules 4 and 5 of the bill. Schedule 4 amends the Income Tax Assessment Act to limit the ability of listed companies to offer franking credits on off-market share buybacks, raising $200 million a year in tax clawbacks. Schedule 5 amends the Income Tax Assessment Act to limit the ability of listed companies to offer franking credits on capital raisings, raising some $50 million over 5 years. These 2 measures will limit the ability for companies to offer franking credits to shareholders. The tax will fall overwhelmingly on older Australians and superannuation funds. The tax expenditure and insight statement released by the government in March found the biggest beneficiaries of franking credits are older Australians, Australian companies, Australian super funds and Australian charities. And yet these are the people that are going to be impacted by the changes contained in this bill. Even the October budget acknowledged that a substantial portion of the revenue from this measure will fall on Australians' superannuation. New tax policy measures announced since PFO also increased super fund tax receipts during that same period. This includes the impact of improving the integrity of off-market share buybacks measure. Franking credits are granted against company tax already paid by restricting the offering of franking credits. The increase on tax is not from the company issuing the credits, but the individual shareholders who benefit and receive corresponding reductions on their tax. King and Wood Mallesons have described the measures as the federal government is seeking to prevent entities from providing franking credits to shareholders in what it considers are inappropriate circumstances. The measure reduces the ability for companies to offer franking credits on new capital raising activities. There is genuine concerns that the measure will have unforeseen impacts and wider application than Treasury claims. This tax increase is despite the Prime Minister ruling out changes to the franking credit regime before the election. And as Senator Scarr noted, the Coalition's Senator's dissenting report in relation to this bill is an impressive document, and it is something that should be read and should be considered before any changes are made. One section that I wanted to read in particular from that, again, is something that comes from some evidence from Professor Robert Nicol, talking about flow-on effects on tax, profitability and shareholder returns as a result of this measure. And he states, if implemented, I expect off-market buybacks will be discontinued and some companies will choose not to take the on-market option, resulting in some instances of less than optimal capital management, reduced profitability, less tax paid and reduced shareholder returns.